All right, today we are taking a look into the future, specifically a pretty startling 25-year forecast for what we'll all be eating. Now, this might feel like a world that's way off in the distance, but it is unfolding way faster than you might think. So let's dive in. So let me just ask you, straight up, what do you think is going to be on your dinner plate in 2051? Seriously, picture it. Whatever you're imagining right now, get ready. Because the most likely future of food is about to challenge pretty much everything you think you know. And look, before you write this off as some sci-fi movie plot, you should know that the scenario we're about to walk through is based on some very real-world data. We're talking about our current rates of soil depletion, growing water shortages, and technology that's already being worked on. So this isn't fantasy, it's a realistic vision, and frankly, it's one that's being dictated by a real sense of urgency.
So the first huge shift is predicted to start as early as 2026. The source material calls it the Great Protein Replacement. Now, this isn't about some sudden global change of heart. It's really about pure math and ecological reality forcing an end to mass industrial livestock farming as we know it.
Okay, so when you hear insect protein, I know what you're picturing. A bowl of crunchy crickets, right? But the reality is going to be a lot more subtle. This forecast points to a massive industry built on insects like mealworms, but they'll be turned into this ultra-processed, totally invisible flour. You won't even know it's there. It'll just be mixed right into our pasta, our bread, and you can bet it'll be in our pet food. So why the big shift? I mean, what's really driving this? This slide lays it out perfectly. It just shows the sheer inefficiency of our current system. Just look at the resources that traditional livestock farming eats up compared to its new alternative, cultivated meat. The difference in water, in land, in carbon, it is absolutely staggering. This is the mathematical problem that technology is racing to solve.
And that brings us to the core tech here, cellular meat. So, this is real animal muscle tissue, but it's grown directly from stem cells inside these big bioreactors. Honestly, you can just think of them like the giant vats you'd see in a brewery. The key takeaway is, we're no longer growing an entire animal just to eat one part of it.
And this quote it nails the new logic perfectly. The whole focus shifts from raising a complex living thing over years and years to just cultivating the specific part we actually want to eat. It's a fundamental change in how we even think about production. All right, so let's move on to the next phase because this is where it all builds. Sometime between 2035 and 2045, the forecast says that agriculture itself is going to need to, well, take shelter. With climate change making old-school farming so dangerously unpredictable, our food production is going to have to move indoors, into what they're calling fortress farms. And here is the single scariest data point driving that change. By 2036, which is not that far away, it's predicted that nearly a third of the world's intensive farmland will be basically useless, biologically sterile. That's the direct result of a century of chemical agriculture. The soil itself is just giving out. So, what's the solution? These incredible, high-tech fortress farms. We are talking about massive indoor facilities. Picture repurposed warehouses or giant towers right in the middle of our cities. There's no soil, no sun, no seasons. Instead, you've got AI-controlled systems using aeroponics and custom LED lights to grow produce all year round, with absolutely zero pesticides. And get this, the whole operation will be run by algorithms. They'll be calculating the exact amount of light, water, and nutrients needed, down to the milliliter, down to the second. This makes it possible to grow something like a head of lettuce in half the time it would take in a field. It's agriculture, but completely untethered from nature's cycles. Okay, so this brings us to the final and maybe wildest evolutionary step. From 2045 to 2051, we enter the era of hyper-precision nutrition. This is the point where making food stops being about feeding the masses and becomes entirely about you, the individual.
So, how on earth would that even work? Well, this slide breaks it down into a pretty clear three-step process. First, an AI analyzes all your personal genetic and medical data. Then, it designs the perfect recipe with the exact vitamins and nutrients your body needs on that specific day. And finally, a 3D food printer just assembles the meal for you.
And let's be super clear here. We're not talking about printing some kind of mushy nutrient paste, okay? The technology being described here is way more advanced. We're talking about printers that can actually assemble different components, like cultivated muscle fibers and plant-based fats to perfectly recreate the texture, the bite, the mouthfeel of a real steak or a fillet of salmon.
So, the big question is, how do we get from where we are now to that? Well, this timeline lays out the key milestones on this 25-year journey, and it even gives them probability scores.
I mean, just look at these tipping points. The forecast gives an 85% probability, that's huge, to a heavy European meat tax by 2027. By 2034, it predicts with that same probability that cultivated meat will finally cost the same as farmed meat. That's a massive turning point. Fast forward to 2040, and real animal meat is a luxury item, like caviar. And then, by 2051, we reach something they're calling the food singularity.
So let's put it all together and look at this new food reality. The ultimate outcome of all these technological shifts is a future where our food supply is almost completely, decoupled from the natural world.
And that brings us to the formal definition of this food singularity. It is a state where an AI manages everything, from designing brand new protein molecules that don't even exist in nature, to then synthesizing them directly onto your plate. Our food supply becomes totally independent of weather, of climate, of geography.
And this chart just shows you how dramatic that shift really is. Take a look at the projected sources for our food in 2051. The vast majority of it is coming from cultivated and synthetic proteins. Produced from vertical farms is right behind. And traditional farming, as we know it today, well, it's just a tiny sliver of the whole pie.
And here's the profound upside to all of this. According to this forecast, by 2051, we will have actually solved the mathematical problem of how to sustainably feed 10 billion people on a planet with dwindling resources. The problem of food scarcity, it could finally be over.
But it leaves us with one last really crucial question. This hyper-efficient future is, technologically fascinating, but in a world where food is synthesized in a lab and grown in a tower, a world without farms and fields, what have we lost? What are the cultural trade-offs? That is something to think about.